So, one of my favorite stories to tell is the story of Rent. Rent was written by Jonathan Larson. Now, Jonathan Larson was a up and coming, as you say, playwright. He wrote Tick Tick Boom in like 89, somewhere like that. And then he started writing Rent. What he noticed in the 80s is that a bunch of his LGBTQIA plus and all of the above friends and families were getting something called AIDS. At the time, AIDS was kind of like our modern coronavirus in that no one knew how it happened really, and you didn't know how somebody could get it. Now that time has passed and we've done research, we now know that the coronavirus comes, excuse me, AIDS comes from unprotected sexual contact between two people. Gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, whatever it is, it just comes from unprotected sexual contact. But in those days, we didn't know it. People noticed it was the gay disease, and Jonathan Larson had a bunch of gay friends because he lived in New York City, which apparently that's where a lot of the gay people go. Anywho, so he wrote this musical, and it went into workshop. And while it was in workshop, they kept revamping it, changing it, because that's what happens in workshop in musical theater. Anywho, so it moved from what they call off-Broadway, which is what the term for workshopping it and making it better, to a Broadway theater. So I want you to picture it. It's opening night. And you got Jonathan Larson, who actually, let's back it up. It's the week before they open. Jonathan Larson is having some chest pains, and he's like, okay, this is weird. He thought maybe it was anxiety related, so he didn't get it checked out. A couple days later, same thing has happened again. So he decides to go to the hospital and just see what's up. So when he gets to the hospital, his doctors, they check him, they test him out. Nothing's really wrong. He's just having heart pains, chest pains, that kind of thing. So a couple days later, they have opening night. And he's out in the lobby, shaking hands. Hey, thank you for coming to my play, that kind of thing. The doors close and all the audience is in. The overture starts, the curtain rises, and suddenly, right before Jonathan was about to open the door, he collapses. So he never made it into the auditorium. They call the hospital, and they put him on a stretcher. They take him to the hospital. But before the end of the show, like maybe 20, 30 minutes into the show, Jonathan Larson is dead. So no one really knows what's happening until the end of the show. And Jonathan Larson is supposed to come out, hey, thank you for coming to my show, and explain what he was writing it for. So he does it. They're looking for him backstage, and finally somebody comes out and basically reads his speech. And he says, okay, well, this was written because Jonathan Larson had friends who, in the 80s, were impacted by the gay AIDS crisis. And so he wrote this in memory and in honor of them and who they are. And he identified mostly with Roger because many of his friends actually had the disease, but he was the only one. And there's a moment where Roger says, I get to watch you all die. That's why I'm running away from you, because I'm going to watch you all die. And so the next night, of course, after the performance, they went and told everybody. And, of course, everybody was, like, freaking out and really upset and all of that. And then the next night, on the second night of their performance, they were like, okay, Jonathan's dead. We're just going to preserve his memory, and we're just going to sing through everything. And this is a common practice where they would just sit at a table and read through and sing through everything. Particularly, this is done when you're in a time of mourning. So the first act happens, and they're just singing through. And they go back for the intermission, and they're like, Jonathan wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want us sitting here. This is a piece about what it means to be alive, what it means for your life to be continuing despite all the threat of AIDS. And so the overture starts for the second act, and it's quite a really good song called La Vie Bohème, and it comes from the words from the opera that Jonathan Larson wrote this based on. And so it's quite an energetic, peppy, upbeat song, and so suddenly you see the cast bursting up, starting to do their dance, choreography, and everything in just their plain clothes, because that's how Jonathan would have wanted it. And that is the story of Rent.